Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Dante Harris is a young man escaping an abusive background and a tumultuous breakup in Round Rock, Texas. He finds himself navigating the vibrant chaos of New York City, where he encounters Samuel Deminico, a lifelong New Yorker who has turned his aspirations into reality by opening a boxing gym. Samuel's life takes an unexpected turn on April 15th, when he is confronted and attacked by a drug-addicted assailant, revealing the perils that lurk outside the safety of the ring. Their initial meeting is marked by an exchange that highlights the stark differences in their experiences and the brutal reality of urban life, setting the stage for their intertwined destinies in the city. Chapter 1. Dante's POV. Mr. I heard someone call out from somewhere within the busy crowd. It took serious maneuvering to push through the sea of people making their way inside the bar. Howard had failed to mention it could get this busy on a Tuesday night. So, there I was, on my very first night of work, struggling to keep my composure. After what felt like the millionth spilled drink, I decided some fresh air might do me good. But the moment I stepped outside into the streets of New York City, I realized fresh air might not actually exist here. Mister? Do you have some change? The voice called again. I looked around, but I still didn't see anyone. Where was it coming from? Mister. I felt a tap on my shoulder. When I turned, a man I had never seen before stared back at me expectantly. We were about the same height, but that's where the similarities ended. He was missing a tooth and a fair amount of clothing. Do you have any change? His eyes were wide and bloodshot. The way he moved made it clear he wasn't in a steady state of mind. My heart sank. I'm sorry, I said softly. I don't have anything. His expression shifted strangely, like my words had offended him. I said, do you have some change? He repeated, more firmly this time. I glanced around, hoping someone else would notice what was happening, but the streets were nearly empty. Cassie had mentioned bar close was coming up soon. A few people hurried past, but no one stopped. I was quickly learning that minding your own business was the New Yorker way, which left me alone with this man. I'm sorry, sir, but I really don't have any change. I tried again, forcing a polite smile. It didn't help. When I turned to leave, his hand yanked me back. I spun around, ready to confront him, but before I could react, I saw a fist flying straight toward my face. Then, nothing. And that's the story of how I got punched in the face on my very first day in New York City. Well, let me rephrase. That's the story of how I was saved by an incredibly attractive stranger, after being punched in the face on my first day in New York City. I would soon find out his name was Willis. No, not the attractive stranger. The man who punched me. Honestly, though, he felt more like a Steve. 11 hours earlier. Do you have any experience in bartending? I looked up from the crumpled job description packet I'd been given and met the eyes of the scraggly man across from me. He had introduced himself as Howard, though he didn't really look like a Howard. Crumbs, probably from lunch, were tangled in his beard. Everything about him screamed, hot mess. Then again, the bar I had stumbled into wasn't much better. I've sold liquor before, I answered carefully. Howard gave me a slow nod. Technically, I wasn't lying. I'd sold liquor at a convenience store. Had I ever bartended? Absolutely not. But I needed this job. Honestly, I needed any job. Perfect. We don't do direct deposit, so you'll get a check every 2 weeks. Stop by tonight. Cassie, one of our bartenders, will show you the ropes. We'll get you a company shirt, but wear black pants and closed-toe shoes. Safety reasons. I tried to focus on his words, but the crumbs in his beard were incredibly distracting. I'll be out today and tomorrow, but I'll be back Friday if you still have questions, Howard said, standing up. I took that as my cue the interview was over. I need you here no later than 9 p.m. tonight. If you can't make it, text the number on that paper. I glanced down. Sure enough, a phone number was scribbled at the top of the page. Tonight at 9, I confirmed with a nod. That was the last thing we said to each other before Howard disappeared back behind the bar to help customers. It was only 10 in the morning. That gave me a few hours to sort my life out, like picking up the keys to my new apartment. It wasn't much, some would say it was far from much, but it was within my budget and that was enough. As I stepped outside into the bustling streets, one thought hit me hard, louder than the car horns and chatter around me. What on earth am I doing here? Chapter 2. Dante's POV. You know how I said this apartment wasn't anything special? I may have overstated. This place looked like it had a dozen health code violations. The carpet was stained, the walls chipped, the elevator looked like it hadn't worked in years, and the lock on my door seemed like it had been broken into more than once. Safe to say, I'd never felt so unsafe before. Finally seeing the place in person put me in a sour mood before work. I hadn't even had time to think about furniture, though it looked like my bed alone would take up most of the studio space. And knowing I'd be paying the same price for this shoebox as I had for my one-bedroom, two-bath apartment back in Texas? That was crushing. Still, I tried to stay optimistic. I spent the whole day cleaning, scrubbing every surface with disinfectant, tearing down the peeling wallpaper. By the time night rolled around, I was already exhausted. But it was time for work. The only reason I chose this place was convenience. It was just a few blocks from the bar. I put on my best black pants, some dress shoes, and a black button-down shirt. When I caught sight of myself in the mirror, I realized I looked like I was heading to church. You can take the boy out of church, but you can't take the church out of the boy, I joked to myself. It was exactly how my mom used to dress me on Sundays. Definitely not bartending attire, but it was too late to change. The walk to the bar was brisk. For a hole-in-the-wall place, you couldn't miss the giant glowing sign, Tidal Wave. During the day it looked dead, but at night? It was absolute chaos. I had to fight my way through the crowd forming outside, and just as I thought I'd be pushed back into the chilly street, someone grabbed my arm. "Oh no you don't," a girl shouted over the noise as she pulled me inside and toward the back. The first thing I noticed were the hot pink streaks in her hair. She wore a black tank top and tight jeans, and her hazel eyes stood out against her deep brown complexion. When we finally stepped into the employees-only area, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "Sorry about that, sugar. Tuesdays get wild here. It's $1 shots all night." Okay, that explained it. "I'm surprised Howard even put you out here tonight. Did you tell him you had bartender experience or something?" she asked. Yes? Not really. But I thought it would help me get the job," I admitted. She burst out laughing. "Oh, you cute little thing. Howard probably believed you too. You didn't even need to lie. That man would hire anyone who can pour a drink." She rummaged through a locker, pulled out a medium black t-shirt, and handed it to me. Then she gave me a drawstring bag half full of supplies. "Here's what you'll need to survive tonight. I'll get your badge ordered tomorrow, but for now, you can use whatever name you want." I couldn't help but smile. Out of everyone I'd met today, I liked her the most. Speaking of names, mine's Cassie. I forgot my tag tonight, so if anyone asks, I'm Bridget. Got it? "Yes, ma'am," I said. She paused, then gave me a playful grin. "You are just the absolute cutest, you know that? Don't change, Don't let New York take that innocence." My eyebrows furrowed. "How did you know I'm not from here?" "Sugar, you're way too sweet to be a born and raised New Yorker. But enough chit-chat, we've got to keep moving. You and I are running the bar. Aiden and Chris are covering the floor. Tuesdays are our busiest night, so keep up and follow my lead. Usually, I'd have you change into the work shirt, but we don't have time. Don't blame me if your nice church shirt gets ruined," she called back as we stepped onto the floor again. The moment we reached the bar, someone yelled, "Where's the bartender?" Cassie didn't miss a beat. "Right here, Pete. You're so drunk you didn't notice the shot I already set in front of you?" "What shot?" Pete blinked at the empty counter. He was huge, at least 6 feet 5 inches, and for a moment, I froze in panic. But Cassie just smirked. "The one I'm giving you so you can get it together before I call Sammy. That one." The whole bar erupted in laughter, and even Pete cracked a grin. Fine. You win. Can I at least get a beer?" he asked. Last one of the nights, Cassie said firmly. I watched her, awestruck. She was fearless. When Pete nodded and sat back down, I realized I was still staring until Cassie gave me a pointed look. Sorry. What do you want me to do? I asked. You're fine, love. If the regulars ask for a beer without specifics, give them this. She pointed to the white-labeled bottles. If they want tap, make sure the hoses are right. And honestly, by the end of the night, most of them won't notice the difference. Some of the crowd pretended to protest, but the second Cassie looked up, they went silent. Just follow my lead and you'll be good, she said. And honestly, that was probably the last clear piece of advice I got out of Cassie that night. The rest of the shift was a blur of drink orders, sweat, and chaos. Cassie worked like she'd been born behind that bar, while I scrambled to keep up. By closing time, I was drenched and probably seconds away from fainting. Take a step outside, she finally told me. And she was right, I needed it. Which leads me back to what I've already told you. Because that's when I stepped outside and got punched in the face by a stranger. But more importantly, that's also when I met the person who would end up saving me. Chapter 3. Sammy's POV. Keep your back straight. Your stance is everything, I called out to the ring of new trainees, raising my voice over the loud music blasting through the gym. I don't know if it's just me getting older, but I swear the music gets more obnoxious every night. Most of the kids training tonight were between 17 and 19 years old, and let's just say, I couldn't understand 90% of what they wanted to listen to. One of the new hotheads, Kyle, lost focus when his eyes drifted toward another ring where two veteran boxers, Grayson and Michael, were sparring. They were evenly matched until Grayson pulled off something impressive, dodging 3 hits in a row and following with 4 quick, precise jabs. Michael hit the mat hard. Kyle's moment of distraction cost him. Ricky, his opponent, landed a clean punch to his jaw and sent him down. Don't lose focus, Kyle. Eyes on your match, not theirs. I called out as Ricky helped him back up. Kyle's face flashed with frustration, but he held it in as the round ended. Before I could head to the locker room, Grayson stopped me. He was drenched in sweat, exactly what I like to see after sparring. Almost closing time, huh? Grayson said with a grin. Cassie mentioned she could hang back tonight. Want to wrap up here and grab a drink? They'll be closing up soon anyway. I thought about it as I set down my water bottle. Technically, it'd be breaking my own pact with the guys. No alcohol for a month to prep for the next fight. But the thought of a whiskey was tempting, especially since Cassie's drinks were always on the house. Give me a few minutes to close up, then we'll go, I finally replied. Grayson's grin widened. We headed back to the locker room, where the group was already changed and waiting. It was a Tuesday night. Most of them probably had schoolwork to catch up on. I gave them feedback one by one. Xavier needed to tighten his stance, Kyle had to keep his focus, and Ricky got praise for his clean hit. When I mentioned bringing in the veterans again for Saturday's rotation, the older guys groaned. I caught someone muttering, "Come on, Sammy," but ignored it. No excuses, we've got competitions to train for. And Raiden, I remember you losing badly last year. Don't think I've forgotten. That got the room laughing, and soon after I dismissed everyone. Good work tonight. Be here at 9 sharp on Saturday for training. Now get out of here and enjoy the night. That was all the motivation they needed. The veterans cleared out faster than the rookies. I laughed to myself as Grayson and I stayed behind to close up the gym. When we finally stepped outside, the cool air felt good after the heat of training. Tidal Wave, the bar just a block down, was our destination. As we approached, I noticed Willis outside. The guy was rocking back and forth, clearly out of it. He was talking to someone, a kid who couldn't have been taller than him. Under the street lamp, I caught a better look. He wasn't actually a kid, maybe in his 20s. Medium build, mocha skin tone, sharp black button-down shirt. There was something mysterious about him. I wondered what he was doing talking to Willis of all people. He gave Willis a polite smile and started to turn away, when Willis grabbed him roughly by the shoulder. The young man froze, caught completely off guard. Before he could react, Willis punched him square in the face. The stranger collapsed to the pavement. Grayson and I moved instantly. Grayson sprinted ahead, grabbing Willis in a headlock, while I dropped to check the young man. Up close, I realized he was older than I thought. His nose was bleeding badly, but even through the mess, his features were gentle. "Hey, are you all right?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. His eyes fluttered open, panic flooding them. What just happened?" he stammered. "You're okay," I reassured. "Willis hit you, but we've got you now. Let's get you cleaned up." He accepted my hand, shaky but grateful, and we helped him inside tidal wave. The moment we entered, Cassie's voice rang out. "What on earth happened?" "Willis hit him." "Don't ask me why," Grayson explained. Cassie's bubbly energy instantly shifted to concern. "Oh my gosh, Dante? Can you hear me? Are you okay?" She called him Dante. "You know him?" I asked. "Of course. He's our new bartender. It was literally his first day today." "What is wrong with this city?" Cassie sighed, already wetting a towel to hand him. Dante leaned against the bar, trying to hold pressure on his nose. "Does it look broken?" he asked, wincing. "Move your hand for me," I said. When he did, I gently lifted his chin to get a better look. His eyes met mine, guarded, nervous, but striking. It was definitely broken, but he'd live. "You'll be all right," I told him with a small smile. "Thank you," he murmured, looking away quickly. Cassie waved her hand. "Don't worry about working tonight, sugar. Go home," I said, "and come back when you can. We've got the shifts covered." Dante managed a faint smile. "Thank you. Bridget?" he asked. Cassie blinked, then laughed. "Oh no, sweet pea. Cassie's fine around these guys." Even Dante chuckled at that, though carefully. "Got it? Thanks again." As he slid off the stool, I asked, "Want me to walk you home?" He avoided my gaze but smiled politely. "I'll be okay. Really. Thanks for everything." He waved to Cassie as he headed out. "See you tomorrow." "Promise me you'll survive until then," she called after him. The last thing we heard was Dante's soft laughter fading into the night. Chapter 4. Dante's POV. The walk home was rough. I tilted my head back slightly, trying to keep my nose elevated as I made my way down the quiet sidewalk toward my apartment. That punch had knocked the wind out of me. My mind kept replaying the events over and over. One moment I was being forced to face down a stranger who was clearly out of his mind, and the next, I was on the ground. When I opened my eyes again, everything was different. Someone else was there. Not the unstable man. No, someone far steadier. Far more striking. He was tall, broad-shouldered, practically blocking out everything else as he leaned down toward me. His voice was calm, steady, even though I barely heard his words. All I could focus on were his piercing blue eyes. When he held out his hand, I took it without hesitation. By the time I got to my feet, the stranger who had attacked me was gone. In his place stood two men. The first was the blue-eyed stranger, blonde hair damp with sweat, his gym shirt clinging to him. Beside him stood another man, just as tall and solid, his warm brown skin glowing under the streetlight. For a second, I thought maybe I hadn't survived that hit. Maybe I had stumbled into some strange dream. Reality came crashing back when Cassie screamed the moment she saw me. Horror was written all over her face, but she quickly rushed to help me clean up. Only then did I realize she knew these men, the same ones who had come to my rescue. Both of them wore matching gym shirts with Fight Club printed boldly across the back. I hadn't noticed how sweaty they were until now. They must have just finished training. Cassie handed me a damp cloth to press against my nose. I winced but managed to smile faintly as I cleaned myself up. She explained who I was to the two men at the bar, and when the noise died down, I asked the question I was afraid to know the answer to. "Does it look broken?" The blue-eyed man stepped closer, pulling out the stool beside mine. His presence was overwhelming, and yet, oddly comforting. His gaze locked on me, so intense it felt like heat radiated between us. "Can you move your hand for me?" he asked gently. I nodded and dropped my hands to my sides. He reached forward, tilting my chin upward with one finger. The touch was careful, but my whole body tensed at the closeness. "He's just checking your nose," I reminded myself. "Breathe." After a moment he smiled. "You'll be fine." I looked away quickly, my pulse racing at how easily that smile undid me. "Thank you," I murmured. Before the moment could linger, Cassie chimed in, reminding me I could come in any time tomorrow. I decided morning would be best, hoping to make a good impression on my first official week in New York City. The blue-eyed man offered to walk me home, but I declined. The walk was short, and the last thing I wanted was for him to see the tiny, empty apartment I was calling home. When I finally stepped inside, two things hit me immediately. 1, I didn't have a bed yet. 2, the only thing in my freezer was a bottle of tequila. Sammy's POV. "He's never coming back, is he?" Cassie groaned, leaning against the counter. "This is it, the final straw. A crackhead breaks my brand new bartender's nose, and that's the end of it." Grayson lifted a brow. "I mean, that was definitely something." Cassie sighed. "I just hope he does come back. For someone with zero bartending experience, he handled himself really well tonight. He even helped out Aiden and Chris when they needed backup. You can't find that kind of dedication these days." She wasn't wrong. "I thought he took that punch like a champ," I added. "Sure, he's not a fighter, but he didn't fold. That counts for something." Grayson smirked. "Always work with you, huh? No play." I chuckled. I'd actually give the kid a few pointers for free if he wanted them. Both Cassie and Grayson gave me a look. "That's unusual for you," Cassie said first. "Yeah," Grayson added. "You're normally the guy who says, money up front, no exceptions." I waved them off. What can I say? The kid just got blindsided by a lunatic. Don't act like I don't have a heart. They both laughed, but my thoughts drifted back to Dante. The way he avoided eye contact. The way he flinched slightly when I touched his chin. The nervous energy in every small movement. I wasn't sure of his story, but it was clear he had been through something. And then there were his eyes. Gentle, cautious, but layered with walls built from something deeper, something painful. I couldn't explain why I felt so drawn to him, but I wanted to help. Maybe Cassie and Grayson thought it was out of character for me, but I knew this much. Helping Dante wouldn't just ease his mind. It would ease mine too. Cassie gave me a teasing smile. "It's not that we think you don't have a heart, Sammy. You're just a little frugal with it." I grinned because she was right. I'd always been a man of routine, slow to welcome change. But something about Dante? Something told me this change might be worth it. Chapter 5. Dante's POV. When I woke up the next morning, the throbbing in my nose told me right away that things had only gotten worse. I reached up through the duvet to feel it, only to hiss in pain. The swelling had grown so much it barely felt like my own nose anymore. Sleeping on the floor was just as uncomfortable as you'd imagine. Every muscle in my body ached, but I told myself furniture would have to wait until I had more money. For now, I had the essentials. New York's rough welcome wasn't going to break me. That determination vanished, though, the second I saw myself in the bathroom mirror. My nose looked like it had been hit by a train, swollen, bruised, and impossible to ignore. The night before, I had tried to use a cold tequila bottle as an ice pack, but it hurt too much to press against my skin. Instead, all I managed to do was drink more of it than I should have. I got cleaned up, determined to make myself at least somewhat presentable for work. My nose was a lost cause, but my hair, I could fix that much. What in the world? Oh no, Cassie gasped as soon as I walked into the back room. Dante, your face looks awful. I mean really awful. Normally, I might have taken offense. But looking at her shocked expression, I knew she wasn't wrong. I didn't have any ice at home, I explained, trying to downplay it. I used a frozen tequila bottle instead, but that didn't exactly help. Cassie frowned deeply. Oh, Dante, she sighed, already rummaging around. Let me get a makeshift ice pack for you. But honestly, I don't think I can send you out on the floor today. Did you want to take a few days off too? I can't, I blurted out, cutting her off. My voice was sharper than I meant it to be, but I couldn't help it. Missing work meant missing pay, and missing pay meant I couldn't afford rent. I needed every hour. Sorry. I really need the shift. For a moment, her expression was unreadable. Then she gave me a warm, understanding smile. All right, no hours cut, she said kindly. But I still can't put you out there with customers. How about this? You run some errands for me today, and I'll cover your usual spot. Deal? Relief washed over me, and I nodded quickly. That sounds great. Perfect. Let's start with some inventory. These are the books here. Just check off the deliveries for the last few weeks. Once you're done, come find me. Got it, I said. Before she left, I called out softly, Cassie? She paused at the door. Yeah. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Her lips curved into another smile. Don't mention it, kid. The inventory was easier than I expected. The records at Tidal Wave were surprisingly organized, better than the place looked from the outside. It only took me about an hour and a half. When I came back out, the restaurant was packed. The lunch rush was in full swing, and the air buzzed with conversation. Cassie stood behind the bar, juggling orders with a smile, sweat glistening on her forehead but not slowing her down one bit. Dante, she called, spotting me. How's inventory? All finished, I said, handing her a hose for one of the drink faucets. Fantastic. You're a lifesaver. She grinned, then bent down to open a glass cabinet. Pulling out several bags of packaged food, she handed them to me. Usually, I run these lunches over to Fight Club, the boxing gym, but one of the beer's taps broke, and I've got to get someone in to fix it. Do you think you could deliver these for me? I hesitated, adjusting the weight of the bags in my arms. I don't think I know where that is, or who exactly I'm supposed to give them to. Oh, just ask for Sammy, she said quickly. The gym's only a few blocks away on Happorn Lane. You can't miss it. And if you do, give them a call. I still had questions, but looking at her balancing half a dozen tasks at once, I kept them to myself. The least I could do was figure this errand out on my own. Chapter 6. Dante's POV. Fight Club was nearly impossible to miss. The building looked like an old factory that had been converted into a gym. Honestly, it seemed even more rundown than my apartment complex. Balancing the food bags in one arm, I reached for the heavy entrance door. Part of me worried that if I pulled too hard, the whole place might collapse like a cartoon sketch. Before I could even try, the door burst open from the inside. I stumbled back, almost losing my balance, when a strong hand caught my arm just in time. Whoa, sorry. You okay? A familiar voice asked, steadying me. The moment I registered his touch, my body tensed. I quickly pulled my arm back, leaving his perfectly sculpted brows furrowed in confusion. Then our eyes met, my brown ones locking with his piercing blue. Recognition sparked immediately. Dante? He asked, studying me intently. Hi. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know anyone was. My words stumbled out in a mess, and I wanted to sink through the floor. His expression softened as he noticed the food bags in my hands. No need to apologize. You must be here with our lunch order. I nodded quickly. Yeah, Cassie said to bring this to either Sammy or Grayson, but I don't actually know who's who. I wasn't sure if Sammy was a guy or a girl, or maybe short for Samantha or Samuel, but here, let me help. He cut in gently, taking some of the bags from me. I followed his long strides deeper into the gym. At the front, newcomers were practicing drills on mats. Farther back, more experienced fighters trained with heavier equipment. The air smelled like sweat and determination. A loud thud startled me. I turned to see a man lying on a mat, bloodied but being helped up by another fighter. Recognition hit me. It was the guy I'd seen with this blonde stranger the night Willis knocked me out. Seeing him now, shirtless and drenched in sweat, reminded me how intimidatingly fit everyone here was. Is he okay? I muttered without realizing it. The blonde man chuckled. Definitely. These guys know how to take a hit. Come on, let's drop this off in the break room. I can give you a quick tour, if you'd like. I shouldn't. Cassie. She'll be fine, he interrupted, brushing off my concern as easily as Cassie had earlier. Setting the food on a counter, he turned to me fully. Besides, I want to figure out what's going on with your nose. I froze. In the chaos of the gym, I had almost forgotten the swollen mess on my face. His sudden attention made my stomach twist, part dread, part warmth. He stepped closer. Oh, you don't have to, I said quickly, my back pressing against a row of lockers. My heart raced. I know I don't have to. He smiled softly, then crouched to open a cabinet, pulling out a first aid kit. But I want to. We'll get you patched up. Trust me, you haven't even seen what weekends at Tidal Wave are like yet. That made my stomach sink further. Could things really get worse? He motioned for me to sit on a bench. I obeyed, keeping the first aid kit between us as a sort of shield. He took out alcohol pads, giving me another calm smile. By the way, he said, beginning to clean the cut on my nose, that guy who hit you, Willis, he wasn't just some random stranger. He used to own this gym back when it was called Shredded. He went down a different path, but his punch clearly hasn't lost its power. Sorry you had to find out the hard way. I winced when the pad stung, jerking back instinctively. His hand moved under my chin, steadying me. His touch was firm but gentle, and suddenly I felt like the walls were closing in, not from fear, but from how overwhelming it was to have someone like him so close. I avoided his gaze, afraid that if he caught me staring, I'd embarrass myself even more. He leaned in to tape the gauze, and the faint mix of his cologne and sweat reached me. It was dizzying. That should help, he said, finishing the bandage. Here's an ice pack. Use it seriously. It'll make a big difference. Thank you, I said, managing a smile without ruining the tape. For everything. Don't mention it. He smiled back. And hey, if you ever want pointers on fighting back, let me know. The words hit harder than I expected. Flustered, I jumped to my feet. Thanks again, really, but I should get back to work now. I spoke so fast I barely heard myself. Before he could respond, I bolted toward the door. The last thing I heard was his voice calling after me, "Wait!" But I was already gone. Chapter 7. Sammy's POV. What was that all about? Grayson asked, slipping out of one of the vet rings to join me in the back room. I don't know, I admitted honestly, still holding the ice pack in my hand. I was trying to bring this to him. He ran out without taking it. I squeezed the now room temperature pack between my fingers as I turned to face Grayson. That was the same kid from last night, right? Looked like he was bringing us lunch. Grayson raised an eyebrow. What did you say to scare him off so quickly? I threw up my hands. I have no idea. I just told him I could give him a few pointers on defense. Harmless stuff, I swear. I was just trying to help. Grayson gave me one of his usual looks, the kind that suggested he didn't quite believe me. But then again, with Grayson, that expression was practically permanent. You know you're not always great with words, he said with a sigh. I'm sure something came out wrong. I know, I replied quickly, but I'm serious this time. I don't think I said anything that could have upset him. Grayson crossed his arms. Well, I guess we'll find out soon enough, depending on whether Cassie shows up furious. She really likes that kid, and you know how short-staffed they've been. I pushed back the strands of hair that had slipped out of my bun. This whole situation was bizarre. Dante's POV. I sat in the restroom, leaning against the cool porcelain of the toilet's water tank, trying to steady my breathing. Why was I always so shaken up? Why did the smallest things hit me so hard? I gripped the stall railing and inhaled deeply. The words "fight back" echoed in my mind. Memories surfaced sharply, like a balloon released from underwater, and I struggled to push them down. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to stay in control. Cassie hadn't noticed when I rushed into Tidal Wave and slipped into the restrooms, but I couldn't stay hidden forever. The echoes of the past threatened to overwhelm me, but then a loud crash jolted me back to the present. The sound of breaking glass carried through the air. I stood quickly, wiped the dampness from my eyes, and washed my hands before stepping back into the bar. Cassie stood in the middle of the floor, broom in hand, sweeping up the shards of broken glass. A tray lay overturned on the ground beside her. Something must have gone wrong while serving. Chris, the one who insisted on being called that instead of Christina, was nearby, looking frustrated. Honestly, I was still getting used to the group here. Chris and Aiden had been the first to show me the ropes. Aiden had even fixed a drink I'd made wrong last night, but he was patient about it. Chris had given me tips on dealing with difficult regulars. Howard, the main manager, wouldn't be back until tomorrow. Call it nerves. but I was worried he'd notice right away that I had little real bartending experience. Meanwhile, Chris and Aiden kept things moving, though their customer service left room for improvement. Chris had already started arguing with the customer who had bumped into her. Cassie stepped in immediately, calming both sides before things escalated. I watched her handle it with ease, cleaning up the rest of the mess and tossing the glass into the bin behind the bar. Then her eyes found mine. "Dante, you're back," she called warmly, waving me over. I quickly wiped my damp hands on my shirt and crossed the room. "Yes, sorry. Took me a little longer than expected." I thought about explaining how someone from the gym had patched up my nose, but Cassie was already moving on. "I know you haven't met much of our kitchen staff yet," she said, "but I was going to have you help with dishes for the rest of the day." "Sound good?" "Not a problem," I replied. "Just show me what to do, and I'll keep up." Later, when the bar slowed down, Cassie handed the bartending duties to Aiden and gestured for me to follow her through a door near the bar. I'd seen Chris and Aiden go in and out with trays, but I hadn't been back there myself. As Cassie opened the door, I was greeted by a busy kitchen. 4 guys worked in sync, some stirring sauces, others flipping burgers, one switching between cooking and cleaning. "Listen up, everyone," Cassie called out. A few gave quick nods while keeping their hands busy. "This is Dante. He'll be helping with dishes today. Treat him well." Ben, a tall man with a tan complexion and dark hair tied in a bun, glanced over while stirring sauce. Tattoos traced down his forearms. "What's up, Cass?" he asked. "I want you to show Dante the ropes," Cassie said. She gave me a reassuring pat on the back before heading out, leaving me to fend for myself. I walked over hesitantly. Ben looked every bit the type who belonged in a bustling kitchen. Confident, capable, and a little intimidating. "All right, kid," he said, nodding toward the sink. "Grab those gloves and let's get to work." Chapter 8. Sammy's POV. "What a day," I sighed, tossing my worn-out boxing gloves into the trash bin at the end of the locker row. "I could strangle that kid," Grayson muttered, throwing in his own tattered gloves. Tonight, we'd pushed our gear past its limit during sparring. It always left us exhausted, but it also helped us sleep better. Luckily, a new shipment of gloves was on the way for the team before sectionals. "Kyle's reckless," I said, taking a long drink of water. "He tried to trip me, Sammy." "That's an illegal move, one that could get us disqualified at sectionals," Grayson snapped. He rarely raised his voice at me, but this time, he was right to be angry. I'd only caught the tail end of what Kyle had tried, but it was enough. I'd yanked him out of the ring by the ear and shoved him against the wall. "If you ever pull a stunt like that again in my gym, you're done. Understand?" I barked. Kyle's usual cockiness vanished instantly. "Yes, sir," he muttered, refusing to meet my eyes. That settled it. I stuck him with cleanup duty and the practice bag for the rest of the week. If he didn't like it, he didn't need to show up. I thought I'd handled it fairly, but Grayson didn't joke around when it came to situations like that. He'd just recovered from a brutal ankle injury that nearly ended his boxing career. If Kyle had injured him again, I'm not sure Grayson would have held back. "A week of trash duty is a better punishment than what you were about to do to him," I told Grayson. "He won't try it again," Grayson muttered while spraying deodorant in a last-ditch effort to hide the smell of sweat. We were heading to Tidal Wave so he could pick up Cassie after her shift. Chris often stayed late to help clean up, and though Grayson would never admit it, he definitely had a crush on her. I gave him a quick spray of body mist to help. Honestly, now he just smelled like sweat and body spray, but it was better than nothing. "I know these kids can be frustrating," I said, "but the gym's doing well. For now, we deal with it. I won't let anyone hurt you, especially not after what you've been through. Besides, I need you to cover for me tomorrow while I grab supplies to fix the ceiling." Grayson zipped up his gym bag with a groan. "You ready? You're bringing the ice pack for Dante, right? His nose is going to be worse tomorrow without it." "Yeah," I replied, grabbing the pack. "I doubt he's still there," Grayson said as we left the locker room. "Why is that?" I asked. "Didn't see him when I stopped by earlier," he admitted. I raised a brow. "And when was this?" Grayson hesitated before confessing, "An hour ago, give or take." I needed a drink after what happened with Kyle. I sighed but let it slide. You know every calorie counts right now. But fine. Let's still check tidal wave. When we walked in, Grayson was right. Dante wasn't there. Chris was wiping down tables while Cassie smiled from behind the bar. What's up, guys? How was work? Want anything? She asked warmly. Hey Cassie, hey Chris, Grayson greeted, his voice lighter as he caught Chris's eye. She blushed faintly. Everyone in New York could see they liked each other, except them. I gave them both a nod but scanned the bar. No, Dante. Where's the new guy? I asked. I sent him home earlier, Cassie explained, setting shot glasses on the counter. Chris offered to stay and help. Dante needed to rest. I told him I'd still pay him for a full day, so he finally agreed. She glanced at me knowingly. I noticed you wrapped his nose. I'd recognize your handiwork anywhere. I chuckled. She wasn't wrong. I'd patched up Cassie and Grayson more times than I could count. Yeah, he left the ice pack though. That's why I was looking for him. He's going to need it, Cassie said, shaking her head. Doesn't he have one at home? I asked. No. Said he tried using a tequila bottle instead. She frowned. He lives in those apartments on 88th. You could drop it off. Chris wrinkled her nose. They haven't torn those down yet? Those places are barely livable. Yeah, no kidding, Grayson added, though the way he perked up around Chris made me roll my eyes. I'll take it to him, I said. Better to catch him before he calls it a night. See you tomorrow. Cassie waved as I left. The apartments on 88th were even worse than I remembered. The lobby was run down, and the directory looked like it hadn't been updated in decades. A scruffy older man held the door open. Evening. Looking for someone? Yes, a friend, I said politely. His name's not on the directory. Ah, just moved in. Apartment 422. Elevators out, stairs only. Thank you, I nodded, glancing at the shaky staircase. By the time I reached the 4th floor, I was convinced I'd nearly fallen through at least half a dozen steps. Finally, I stood outside Dante's door. I raised my hand to knock, then hesitated. Was this weird? Just showing up like this? What if I'd said something earlier to upset him? Shaking off the doubt, I knocked. After a pause, the door opened. Dante stood there in a loose cotton shirt that revealed more muscle than I expected, paired with joggers. It was strange seeing him outside of work attire. Hi, I said quickly, breaking the silence. Hi, he replied, brows furrowed. What are you doing here? Chapter 9. Dante's POV. I didn't want to go home, but I knew Cassie would insist until I agreed. She even promised I'd still be paid for the full 8 hours, which was thoughtful of her. It wasn't until I arrived that I realized home didn't feel like much of a home at all. I hadn't bought furniture yet. I kept telling myself I'd do it when I found the time. I also wanted to repaint the walls since I had torn most of the old wallpaper down. Water stains lingered in the corners of the ceiling, and I thought maybe a coat of paint could cover them up. Maybe if I paint them, they'll just disappear, I muttered with a dry laugh at my own backwards logic. There was a hardware store not far from here, and the bar. Even though this apartment wasn't much, I was still grateful for the convenient location. A car wasn't in the cards right now, so being able to walk everywhere mattered. Since Cassie gave me tonight and tomorrow off, I figured I'd have time to rest. She mentioned I wouldn't be working again until Friday, and that I should use the time to recover from my nose injury. That's when it hit me. Oh no, I groaned, realizing I'd left the ice pack back at Fight Club. I sighed and headed into the kitchen to search for a substitute. The fridge only held a bag of food Ben had given me and a bottle of water. Maybe I could freeze the bottle? Before I could decide, a sharp knock echoed at the door. I froze. My chest tightened, my palms began to sweat. Who could that be at this hour? It was almost 10 at night. It can't be him, I told myself. No one knows I'm here. Cautiously, I peered through the peephole. What I saw on the other side made my breath catch. Blonde hair. Blue eyes. Standing in the hallway in the same workout clothes from earlier, holding an ice pack. I opened the door quickly. Hi, he said. Hi, I replied, maybe a little too fast. What are you doing here? As soon as I spoke, I regretted how it sounded. I didn't mean it like that. He raised a hand to stop me. Don't worry about it. I know this is unexpected. I just noticed you left without the ice pack, so I thought I'd bring it to you. Cassie said she sent you home early and figured I'd try here. I felt self-conscious under his gaze, suddenly aware of my plain clothes and the empty apartment behind me. That's really kind of you. Thank you, I said as I took the ice pack from him. No problem. Just keep it on your nose and you'll be fine by the weekend. He brushed a strand of hair behind his ear, and for a second, it looked like he was about to leave. Instead, he paused. Hey, earlier today? I didn't say anything that upset you, did I? I hope not. Sometimes I speak without thinking. Oh no, not at all, I blurted out quickly. Of course, he thought that I had practically sprinted out earlier. I just remembered something I had to do for Cassie, that's all. I'm sorry if it looked otherwise. The excuse wasn't true, but I hoped it would ease his concern. He didn't look fully convinced, but he let it go. If I ever say something out of line, just tell me. I'd never want to offend you. His words were simple, but my heart still stumbled at them. I glanced away, not trusting my expression. Thank you, I managed. No need to thank me. Hope to see you around, Dante. He turned to leave, but this time, I stopped him. Wait, sorry. He looked back, curious. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but after everything, I don't think I've caught your name. The corners of his lips lifted into a small smile. It's Sammy, he said. Short for Samuel, if you were wondering. He chuckled softly at my surprised reaction. Have a good night. And just like that, he disappeared down the hallway. Sammy's POV. On my way home, I thought about the conversation with Dante. It was a relief knowing he wasn't upset with me. I didn't really believe his excuse about running an errand for Cassie, but it wasn't my place to pry. Whatever the real reason, he wasn't ready to share, and that was okay. As long as he understood my intentions, that was enough. That last exchange left me smiling. I wondered why he seemed surprised when I said my name, but then again, Cassie wasn't always great at filling people in. I slid my key into the front door of Fight Club and stepped inside the quiet gym. I knew the way upstairs by heart, so I didn't bother with the lights. The steps felt longer than usual, and I was more than ready to call it a night. I collapsed onto my bed, only to realize I hadn't showered yet. I sighed. This job seemed to get harder every year. Chapter 10. Dante's POV. Waking up the next morning was one of the hardest things I'd experienced in a long time, maybe even in this lifetime or any before. My body ached from spending a second night sleeping on the floor. No amount of stretching seemed to ease the stiffness in my back and shoulders, and even raising my arms above my head felt like a challenge. I needed a bed. Immediately. My old burner phone lit up to show it was just past 9 in the morning. I had overslept, but after the last few days, I figured I deserved the extra rest. Still, there was so much to do. The thought weighed heavily on me. Leaving Texas meant I had nothing but what I carried here. All the money I managed to save had been transferred into the only account he couldn't access. It amazed me how quickly a life could become tangled up with someone else's. The tangling always seemed easy, almost fun. But the untangling? That was what tore you apart. I forced myself off the floor and began the slow process of getting ready. My plan was to head to the hardware store and maybe a furniture shop, though I hadn't yet figured out how I'd manage transporting everything. Selling my car to afford this tiny apartment had seemed like the best option at the time. Besides, I'd read countless articles insisting people survive New York without vehicles all the time. But now, the reality was setting in. Delivery fees were expensive, and asking for help, well, I wasn't ready to go there. I pushed the thoughts aside, slipped on my shoes, grabbed my key, and left the apartment. Summer was approaching fast, and you could already smell it in the air. Not in the best way either. The streets carried a mix of hot garbage, sweat, and other things I tried not to think about. Holding my breath, I tossed my trash into the alley bin and kept moving. Soon I reached the street corner where Tidal Wave stood. Across from it was Jack's Hardware, a local store that looked small from the outside, though I would soon find out otherwise. A neon sign in the window flashed, "Oh, the missing in," making me shake my head with a faint smile. Even with the walk signal, I hesitated before crossing. This city had a way of making you second-guess whether drivers would actually stop. Inside the store, a wave of cool air greeted me, instantly soothing the sweat clinging to my back. "Welcome to Jack's Hardware," the cashier called cheerfully. I returned a polite nod and smile before heading down the aisles. The store was bigger than I expected, and neatly labeled signs guided me to the paint section. The variety surprised me. I decided on eggshell, a neutral color that could easily be painted over later. I reached for the can, only to wince as pain shot through my sore shoulders. A groan escaped before I could stop it. I pulled my hand back, frustrated. That's when another hand reached past me, lifting the exact can I had been trying to grab. "You were reaching for this one, right?" I spun around, startled. And there he was. Sammy. He stood only inches away, holding the paint. My sudden movement seemed to surprise him, and he quickly stepped back. "Sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to sneak up on you. I just noticed you were having a hard time reaching it. Was this the one you wanted?" He held it out, a little hesitant. For a moment, all I did was stare. It was ridiculous, I knew, but seeing Sammy outside of Fight Club, without the gym shirt and shorts, made my heart stumble. He wore faded jeans and a simple cotton shirt that stretched across his broad frame. A few strands of hair had escaped the loose bun at the back of his head, and faint beads of sweat lined his forehead from the summer heat. Somehow, the casual look suited him perfectly. I snapped back to reality when I saw the concern in his expression. Sorry. That's the one I was trying to get," I stammered. Sammy chuckled softly, the corners of his eyes crinkling with a smile. He held the can out further until I finally managed to take it. "Thank you," I said, giving him a nervous smile. "Don't worry about it," he said lightly. "Honestly, I've been wandering this store forever. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be looking for anymore." He gestured to the basket of supplies in his hand. "That article I read said fixing a roof leak was easy. Now I'm starting to doubt it." I couldn't help but laugh, the sound slipping out before I could stop it. Sammy grinned at my reaction. "Roofs can be tricky," I explained. "Could be from a vent, a chimney, any number of things. Have you checked it yet?" His smile faded into a thoughtful look, and after a moment, he asked something I didn't expect. "Do you have any plans for the afternoon?" Chapter 11. Sammy's POV. I watched as Dante pulled himself up from the ladder onto the wooden beams near the ceiling, insisting he needed a closer look at the damaged wood. I stood in the middle of my living room, frozen in place, watching him climb like some kind of daredevil. My heart practically stopped every time he reached for another beam. Dante wasn't bulky, but he was strong. His build was lean, and he moved with an effortless strength that was impressive to watch. Still, the ceiling was high, much too high for comfort, and I felt my stomach twist every time he stretched his arms above his head. I noticed a flicker of discomfort in his shoulders when he reached up. Maybe it was just his posture. Maybe he hadn't been sleeping well. It reminded me of last fall when Grayson cramped his back on a camping trip because we didn't bring inflatable mattresses. He complained for days until Cassie reminded him that he was the one who lost the pump during the previous trip. Chris tried calming him down by saying something about connecting with Mother Nature's spirit, which only shut him up because none of us wanted to hear the lecture again. Those 3 nights on the ground wrecked him so badly that I made him see a chiropractor before I let him step foot in my gym again. "Yeah, it looks like it might be coming from the chimney." Dante's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. He gestured toward the beams above him. "You were right about the wood, it's pretty bad. A lot of it will need replacing, and I'd recommend adding more support beams too. It'll help stabilize the roof. I won't lie, it's going to be some work, and if you hire someone, it won't be cheap. At least, not from what I've seen back in Texas." "You still got that extra kidney? Now's the time to make some calls," Grayson said as he wandered into the living room. Dante startled, nearly losing his footing. "Hey, watch it." I snapped at Grayson, panic tightening my chest. Grayson's eyes shot upward. "Oh, sorry man, I didn't realize you were up that high." It's fine," Dante said, his voice a little shaky. He gave Grayson a small, genuine smile, which calmed me slightly. But yeah, repairs like this usually run 600 to 800, depending on materials and labor. So, I don't know if you need to call your guy or... His words trailed off. Grayson and I both grinned. No, I'm not selling organs to pay for this, I chuckled. But I'm not exactly thrilled about spending that kind of money either. Still, if I don't fix the leak, it'll ruin the floor in no time. I thought back to Dante's reaction earlier when I brought him upstairs. He hadn't expected me to live above the gym, and the look on his face had been priceless. The place was really just one big open space: bedroom, kitchen, and living area all flowing together. The only real divider was a half wall by my bed that created a small nook. I never knew what to do with that space, so I just put a spare bed there for any friend who drank too much at Tidal Wave and couldn't make it home. My train of thought stopped when Dante began his descent. My breath caught as he carefully moved down from the beams, his body lowering with steady control. He reached the ladder, step by step, until his feet finally touched the floor. Only then did I let out a shaky sigh of relief. Heights were definitely not my thing. Thanks for checking it out, I said as soon as he was back on solid ground. No problem. My dad used to do this kind of work, so I picked up some things from him, Dante replied. But his voice faltered, and his body tensed as though the mention of his dad had triggered something. I noticed the shift in his expression but decided not to press. Instead, I acted on impulse. How would you like to earn some extra cash? Confusion immediately crossed his face. As you can see, I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to fixing this roof, I continued. But you clearly know what you're talking about. I can't offer you 600 or 800, but how about 400? And some free gym sessions? Grayson elbowed me hard in the ribs. Okay, a few free gym sessions, I corrected with a laugh. Dante's lips tugged into a small smile, a dimple forming on his right cheek. My eyes lingered there longer than they should have. He looked thoughtful, weighing the offer. After what felt like the longest 10 seconds of my life, he finally gave me a slow nod. Sure, I wouldn't mind. Chapter 12. Dante's POV. So, I had started the day with a single, very simple goal: get a bed. And I used the word simple lightly. A bed was really the only thing on my list right now. Somehow, I was ending the day creating a supply list for Sammy. He said he would take care of getting the materials I'd need to start fixing his roof. You can imagine my surprise when he led me upstairs to another level of the gym that opened into a full apartment. I tried hard not to stare, but the place was unexpected. Most of the walls were exposed brick, like the gym below. One wall held 5 expensive-looking guitars that made me wonder if Sammy actually played them or just collected them. His TV stand was nothing more than a bookshelf flipped on its side, and it was filled, no, overflowing, with trophies. Some had even spilled onto the floor because there wasn't enough space left inside. I wanted to take a closer look, but I knew Sammy had brought me here for one thing and one thing only. I didn't want to waste his time. Sammy didn't seem too happy about me climbing onto the beams instead of just using a flashlight. I tried to explain that it was better for his wallet if I could see exactly how much of the wood needed replacing. Still, I nearly gave myself a heart attack when Grayson showed up out of nowhere and startled me while I was balancing so high up. That ceiling wasn't just high, it was way up there. And then there was the conversation afterward. More specifically, the part where I mentioned my father. I almost never brought him up. Truthfully, I didn't bring him up at all anymore. So why had I felt so comfortable saying those things in front of Sammy, someone I had literally just met? It was strange. Like I had run away from my old life, only for memories to resurface here in New York. Just being in Fight Club was digging up anxiety and pain I thought I had buried deep. Honestly, I knew I should have stayed away from that place after the first time I delivered lunch there. So, what was it about Fight Club that made me lose all sense of caution? Or, more specifically, what was it about Sammy? Maybe it was those sharp eyes. Or the effortless way his messy hair fell when he tied it back. The smile lines on his face when he grinned. It had to be something because the truth was, making it home today without furniture, let alone a bed, had definitely not been the plan. I sighed to myself as I plopped down onto the sleeping bag in my studio apartment. If you could even call it that. The place felt more like a closet. No bed meant another night on the floor, which meant another morning of aching pain. I had tried to look at some options online, but delivery prices were outrageous. Right now, it just wasn't possible. Maybe I could last until my next paycheck? But with the way the schedule worked, that was still weeks away. Still, as I crawled into the sleeping bag that night, there was one thing I didn't regret, leaving when I did. Texas had a bed. It had hot water. It had a roof over my head. But it also had pain, judgment, abuse. My father. I would rather sleep on the floor of a bare apartment than ever think about going back. This was home now. All I could do was take the good with the bad and survive. The next morning at work, Howard was already in the back, buried in paperwork. The second he looked at me, I realized something. Cassie had been right about my nose. Even though the swelling had gone down, it still looked bad. Howard's puzzled stare said it all. "What a hit," he remarked casually, instead of saying good morning. "Yeah, long story," I replied. "As long as it didn't happen in here, it's not my problem." He shrugged. Technically, it had happened just outside tidal wave, but if Howard didn't want details, I wasn't going to offer them. Before I could say anything else, Cassie entered the room with her usual burst of energy. "Well, good morning everyone." "Hey, Howie." Howard flinched at the nickname but said nothing, just gave her a curt nod. "We've got a busy week ahead with the end of the month," Cassie said brightly. "We need to work on the menu and inventory. Plus, we need to figure out Dante's new schedule." Howard gave another wordless nod. I also had some ideas to get customers more involved, maybe raffles or bingo nights or... "I trust your judgment," Howard interrupted, standing. "Do whatever you want. I'm taking a smoke break." Without another word, he left. I raised an eyebrow. "What a charming guy," I muttered. Cassie burst out laughing. "He's all right, just a terrible manager. The upside is, if you talk long enough, he'll usually agree to whatever you want." That made me chuckle. It was obvious now who the real manager was. "What I was going to say," Cassie continued, "was that I'd love to come up with activities for the customers. Maybe trivia nights?" I thought about the regulars I'd already met and nodded. That could work. On our busiest nights, we could throw up a trivia question, and whoever gets it right wins a free drink. Cassie's face lit up. "That's perfect. We could even rotate categories. And maybe we could use that extra chalkboard in storage for the trivia board. This is good stuff." She was already scribbling notes into her planner. Then she looked up at me. "Would you mind being in charge of getting this started? Just whenever you've got downtime." "Absolutely," I said. "I'll let you know what I come up with." Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.